Good evening, everyone, and welcome to RFL. I am Richard French, and tonight we have a special investigation into a very important and a very troubling issue that for a very long time has gone largely unnoticed both here in our region as well as nationwide. We're going to be talking about a massive backlog of unprocessed rape kits. And for the next 60 minutes, you'll see an unfiltered look at what many women go through after they are violated and why, in many cases, these rape victims never get the justice that they so obviously deserve. Now, the crime of rape, as many know, often goes unreported, and there's several reasons. Many victims of the violent act either too ashamed, too embarrassed, or simply too frightened to come forward. And if a woman is brave enough to come forward, the cases are very difficult to prosecute. Often law enforcement reluctant to bring cases to prosecutors if there's any likelihood that the case could get thrown out. Now, I want you to think about some of the following numbers. Every 2 minutes in this country, someone is raped. And about 2/3 of all assaults, they're committed by someone that is known to the victim. That's according to RAINN, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. Now, for victims who come forward, most consent to what is known as a rape kit. That's where medical professionals collect physical evidence from the rape victim's body. As you'll learn tonight, it's an invasive process that for some can be just as traumatizing as the rape itself. And it's a process that can take up to 6 hours. Now, after all that, there's a catch, and it's a big one. What most victims don't know is that in thousands, hundreds of thousands of cases, that evidence sits untested in police storage facilities. The DNA evidence that a hospital collects from a rape victim is essentially useless if a local police department decides not to process that rape kit. Well, tonight, we're going to tackle this issue from many different angles, and we're going to hear from people on the front lines who are working to fix this. Now, our reporter Kim Lengel, who led this investigation, she's here to start things off.
That's right, Rich. And sadly, the situation you just described is far from rare. According to Human Rights Watch, there could be hundreds of thousands of rape kits that never get tested. That means potential rapists roaming free while the evidence that could put them away sits collecting dust in a police storage room. What's worse? Many victims who naturally assume the wheels of justice are turning and that police are working to put their attacker away. But without processing the rape kit, the wheels of justice grind to a halt. That's what happened to 20-year-old Natasha Alexenko, who was attacked while entering her Manhattan apartment building and raped at gunpoint nearly 20 years ago. Natasha survived, but her rapist escaped and remained at large for close to a decade.
I assumed that everything I had done was moving the process along and we were getting closer to finding my perpetrator, including taking that DNA evidence that was in the rape kit to help find my perpetrator. I had no idea that that was not the case.
In 1993, then 20-year-old college student and part-time veterinary hospital worker Natasha Alexenko was sexually assaulted at gunpoint by an unknown attacker in her apartment building in New York City.
As I put my hand on this door here to enter, behind me was a man who pushed the door open further. I felt a gun to my head. He showed me that there was a bullet in the chamber, and he put it to my head and he said, "If you scream, I'm going to kill you." I really made the assumption that since I was seeing his face, he wasn't wearing a mask, that I wasn't going to come out of that alive. There was a gun, there were bullets that I saw on the gun, and this was not going to end well for me.
Natasha says she initially had no idea that her attacker was going to rape her. She says he demanded they go to the rooftop of the building, and on the landing, just before the roof, he forced her to remove her clothes. He rifled through her pants pockets, stole her change and her keys, even her uncashed paycheck.
As I'm standing there naked and afraid and scared, and it didn't hit me what was about to happen, he, at that point, pushed my body. There was like a railing and forced me to bend over on the railing, and I can't tell you whether he took his clothes off too or how it happened, but he proceeded to rape me. It lasted probably about 45 minutes. It was a horrible ordeal. It was being pushed around as I was weeping and crying with the gun constantly pointed to me in one area or another, and he forced me to perform acts on him. And you know, we think of things like, you know, did you scream? Again, it's all about survival. And for me, I thought, well, okay, maybe if I give him this and what he wants, maybe I will come out of this alive. And I did. I did come out of it alive.
Natasha survived the brutal attack, but soon faced another challenge. Immediately after the attack, Natasha and one of her roommates were rushed to a hospital in an ambulance. Frightened and scared, the two women waited in a chaotic emergency room for what seemed like hours. She says she doesn't remember when, but at some point, she fainted. She woke up hours later in an exam room.
It's not a good feeling. You know, you had just been raped. You feel that everybody knows what's just happened to you. You feel like it's written all over your face.
At that point, Natasha agreed to allow a medical nurse examiner to perform a rape kit.
A rape kit collection is similar to a very invasive gynecological exam, and it's an arduous process. Essentially, my body became a crime scene, and it was the way of collecting forensic evidence at the hospital, DNA, fingerprints, all that sort of evidence in order to eventually catch my perpetrator. So to have gone through that sort of thing in order to help the police with the investigation, only to find that the kid had been sitting for 9.5 years collecting dust in a police locker is extremely frustrating. It turns out it could be all for nothing.
Natasha's rape kit sat on a shelf in the New York City County Clerk's office for 9.5 years, just months before the 10-year statute of limitations was set to expire. That's when New York City prosecutors seeking to clear the city of its backlog of rape kits had the evidence analyzed. In 2007, authorities arrested a suspect who was eventually convicted in Natasha's rape. He is in prison and is eligible for parole in 2057. Natasha's story is highlighted in an HBO documentary called Sex Crimes Unit. It focuses on the sex crimes prosecutors in the New York City District Attorney's Office. They are credited with pioneering aggressive techniques in convicting sexual predators, including the clearing of its backlog of 17,000 untested rape kits in New York City. Rich.
And we're going to hear later on from one of the principals who was involved with that. All right, Kim, thank you very much.